Welcome to Tone Talks. Welcome to Tone Talks.
How's everybody doing? This is Antonio Moore coming to you from Tone Talks, looking to have a discussion today that connects the through line that Stephen A. Smith is missing, that connects the through line from today and the wealth we're going through to Jerry Jones, to Joe Biden, and these octogenarians, these 80-year-old men, and how they've set their lineal line up on the back of Black oppression. Can we talk about it? One's president, one owned the most wealthy, the most expensive team in the world, and we want to act like it was yesteryear. Don't have no consequence that Biden created the Carco State and that Jerry Jones got to buy that team from what I see is a white racist man. We'll talk about who he bought the team from. Would he have sold it to a black man? Come on. I want to get into it. So often we get away from the discussion and we allow for the nonsense to be the main story. We talking today. So in 1977, Biden said integrating black students would turn schools into a jungle. A racial jungle. I don't want my children to grow up in a jungle. A racial jungle. I'll give context and talk about the gamesmanship that was played around trying to act like he didn't say and mean what he said. Can we talk? We got people all across the country in here. We having a discussion. I see everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. So then we got Jerry Jones, Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, identified in troubling 1957 segregation photo. So this is the Little Rock and Little Rock 9, I believe, and they were trying to get in, and they're essentially blocked by a crowd of white folk. And Jerry Jones is there. Jerry Jones is right there blocking as well. He gonna act like he was curious. Ain't that something? The NFL mogul has not apologized, but gave his version of events as to what occurred in the disturbing photos. So we got these men now. One's president and one owns the most valuable team in the world, more than all the soccer teams, more than all the basketball teams, more than all the other football teams. He got that stadium. He bought it for $140 million, and now it's worth billions. By what right? We have this context, and we bring up the chart to give context for the new people, because the people that's been here already understand from this show of an America where over the course of our lifetime, they've codified whiteness through law, they've calcified it through wealth, and you guys are out here playing pity pat. What do I mean? You can see it right here. So before this chart, in 1980, white people have about $2 trillion, all white families. By 1989, they have $25 trillion. By 2021, they have about 100, and during Biden's presidency, basically they go up to 130 trillion. From this dip here all the way up to the 130, which is past this, and we know this based on the Federal Reserve numbers that it's now at $130 trillion. There is no guessing going on. And they have it in stocks, they have it in cash. Black wealth is largely non-existent outside of a small slither that's in the hands of boomers through their pensions and their homes, and it will die with them. It will die with them. White wealth will continue to grow. I don't know what you guys are doing. You guys are out here playing pity pat, posting videos of training videos with basketballs and hairstyling, but not showing that 529 plan, that college savings plan to see what the numbers look like. But what I do know is this is real. And that when we look at this thing, they tried to mask it by adding the Hispanic line next to the black line. They didn't build America. They weren't here since the inception. They shouldn't even be on this chart in terms of, but it makes it feel like it's like better. But what the chart actually is saying is there's a specific cost to being ADOS. There is a very specific cost to being ADOS and being in a country that created the amount of wealth it did off of the very backs of your family and the bones of them being traded around. And so now what we see is that during Obama's presidency, which is right here, there was a collapse in 07, 08, and Obama tells us that we can't get reparations, but then proceeds to buoy them and give them, meaning white America, a life raft. which Biden continued. So instead of just saying, I'm not going to give blacks reparations and I'm going to let white folks collapse, he said, I'm going to allow for the housing predatory thing to strip black wealth, and also not going to give any reparations, but I'm going to make sure I save white America and all of that white wealth. And that everything after this dip is Obama, Trump, and Biden. So we talking today, and we're going to get into this discussion. I just had to give that context because a lot of us get confused because we're looking at two men that are 80 years old. Joe Biden, the president of America, and Jerry Jones are both 80 years old and still working. How many of y'all out here have retired parents that retired at like 58 or 62? Well, did they make sure that the 529 plans were full for their grandchildren before they retired? Because these men are the top of the American echelon in terms of business and politics, and they still working and paying stuff into their grandkids. And that's the thing you compete with when you say your kid is going to UCLA. And I tell you that as somebody who went to UCLA. Can we talk about it? I need y'all to see it. I need y'all to understand what we're saying. So if you out here and your parents decided that they was going to do 25 years of just not working while still maybe even asking you for some wealth, you out of it. Because these people are still working, and they kids basically dang near work for them. And they're my age, if not older. Inside Hunter Biden's multi-million-dollar deals with Chinese energy company. All of this comes off of Biden being the president and the vice president before that. John Stephen Jones, the executive vice president, CEO, and director of the player personnel for the Dallas Cowboys of the National Football League. He is the son of Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones. So what they have done is they have calcified their whiteness and they're handing it over to their kids. And you having kids, you ain't got no plan. You talking about hairstyling and basketball drills, and your parents decide they're gonna retire the best of y'all, and they don't have nothing in the 529 plan. And we think this is all gonna work out. And they've been doing this since the 50s or the 60s. I want to go back. I need everybody to understand what we're looking at when we look at two people that are 80 years old. It is 2022. If we go back 60 years, as I counted, let me make sure I get it right. That puts us back at 2062. They are 20 years old in 2062 before Jim Crow. So their entire anchoring of their young adult life, all of the privileges and benefits come during a segregated America that picks and chooses losers and winners based on Adolf's lineage and being white. And they here now, still working, got records of saying all kind of stuff, records of being all kind of people. And now we gonna compete with all of that advantage that's been calcified, grown, locked in by capital, and we gonna make it happen for ourselves. And then we gonna complain on each instance that shows none of that make no sense. Can we talk? Can we talk about it? There is a specific cost to being an American descendant of slavery. But to understand that cost, you got to stop ducking your head in the sand and look at that benefit of standing on the backs of Adolf's people. There is no Biden without him creating the carceral state, the incarceration of your families. There is no Biden without him creating the student loan systems. He sat on top of you. There is no Jerry Jones without all of the workings of doings of meetings that happened because of who he knew, who was in his social circle. Can we get to it? We're not going to guess today. We're not going to miss. We're not going to play. We're going to walk through this thing. I posted this as a tweet. I said, the math in America is to have an old, bad white person that made millions off of doing bad things to people care a lot about you as their white child or biracial child or grandchild. And then you smile a lot and play progressive, spending the ill-gotten gains. And if you can do it with a Black Lives Matter shirt. Millennials will inherit 68 trillion by 2030. Here's what to know if you receive a windfall. Here we go. So we're looking at this multi-generational reality. We're looking at racism in terms of actual people that were living, and we're actually saying we gonna make it past that. Can I talk about it? Please press the like, share the video. I want to make sure I get to this discussion. Please also support the channel, because a lot of people, I know you're going through tough times, but whatever you can support on tonetalks.net, and also support on Patreon on Tone Talks, and also share this video. Let's get the you can Patreon, become a subscriber. You can do all of that. Just support the need to have Black media, and also call in 310-388-3499. The call-in is 310-388-3499. We're about to have a discussion today, and we're contextualizing this. I really wanted to have a wealth show, but I think I got to build to the wealth show through Jerry Jones, because everything that it's interesting, because I really don't see nobody on the level that I'm talking about things on the whole internet, other than maybe no, not really. All I hear them talking about is just like racism. They're not talking about the wealth. They're not talking about the reality of what wealth is. They just kind of scream, just kind of like the reparation thing. Most of the people that you guys have advocating for you now don't even understand the topic. Reparations has to be about elevated ADOS. If it's not, and they're talking about something else, they're not talking about reparations. And when I say elevate, I'm not talking about like just a little bit. I'm talking about like to elite status in America, because that's where we should have been. Whatever that number looks like is whatever that number looks like. And it don't include other people that aren't ADOS. That's not what these people are talking about. So, report, Cowboys Jerry Jones has paid $3 million to a woman in a paternity claim. She asked for $20 million to stay quiet. This was one of his daughters that he didn't acknowledge, but it's just a drop in the bucket compared to the $20 million that a dissatisfied Davis reportedly has requested from Jones, with the promise of remaining silent about her alleged identity as the billionaire's daughter. Newly surfaced photo from 1957 shows 14-year-old Cowboys owner Jerry Jones among white teens blocking Black students from entering their Arkansas high school. But he says he was only there out of curiosity. How many of y'all believe that? Who believe that in the chat, that he was there out of curiosity? Ain't it something to be there in curiosity and then be able to just say that, and everybody still come to your games and you get the highest ratings on Thanksgiving? We ain't got no respect. As Jones explained to the Post, his football coach, Jim Albright, had warned players to avoid the widely anticipated scene on the first day of classes at North Little Rock High. He went anyway. Jones disobeyed, but says he did so out of curiosity and not any racist animosity. People saying they don't believe you, Jerry. They say they don't believe you. Yes, sir. Everybody saying they don't believe Jerry. I don't know that I or anybody anticipated or had a background knowing what was involved. Nobody knew. Everybody there, don't nobody know. But we got a background on Jerry. You remember when he was against the kneeling? Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones behaves like slave owner. This is the opinion piece of the Inquirer. Slave owner over NFL anthem policy. Jerry Jones declared that Cowboys players must stand with toes on the line. That was his quote during the anthem, regardless of the NFL's policy. So this gentleman wrote this piece on the Inquirer, and that's what he actually talked about. I'm getting through a lot of images because I need everybody to have context. I need everybody to understand it isn't just about a photo. This is bigger than a photo. This is about a network of relationships that came out of the privileges of oppressing Black folks. So you know all these people, and you don't know who these people grow to be, and what kind of farms they own, what kind of businesses they own, or what kind of sports teams they own. Let's talk. So on February 25th, 1989, Jerry Jones purchased the Cowboys from H.R. Bum Bright for $140 million, or the equivalent of $300 million or so in 2020. Soon after the purchase, he fired longtime coach Tom Landry. Well, let's read about Harry Roberts Bum Bright. An outspoken conservative, Bright was highly critical of John F. Kennedy. In response to President Kennedy's visit to Texas in 1963, Bright co-sponsored a political advertisement in Dallas Morning News to criticize the president's policies. The full-page ad ran on November 26, 1963, the day that Kennedy was assassinated. So this is who he bought this team from. But we gonna act like we don't understand, and it's not. He don't have racist bones in his body, and it's a long time ago. It's in them billions of dollars though. Until we break up them billions of dollars that are an effect, a reflection of a national norm of racism calcified in these homes, in these accounts, in these sports teams, in these political careers that now are able to be used by people who are your contemporaries, or if not a little older, they on their third generation of doing this. So now we're gonna act like it's in the past, but we don't understand. Jerry Jones bought the team from an outspoken conservative. Would that conservative, I got another question for y'all, have sold that team to a black person? Please do let me know. Let me ask you. Would Bum Bright have sold that team to a black person, an ADOS person? I don't know how the ADOS would have been able to even get the leverage to get that capital together because they were locked out by people like Jerry Jones. Somebody said no out there. We got to contextualize this thing because we got people like Stephen A. Somebody needs to put Stephen A. Smith, shout out to Pope, in a critical race theory class so he can understand why Jerry Jones' behavior 65 years ago connects to his behavior in politics now. And I say, and connected to his ownership of the Cowboys versus the team being sold to an ADOS black man for the same price. Can we talk about it? Can we be about it? Can we connect the dots? Because we're going to bring it all the way forward to your kid's college. How many of y'all out there depending on scholarships to pay for your kid to go to college? You ain't got nothing in the 529 plan. I don't think you guys understand. There is a number. There is a number, and that number ain't zero if you're talking about college. You were supposed to save, and if you couldn't save, you have set your kid off the track by far, and it's pretty much all the ADOS down there, bar a few. We don't even know. We don't even know that they ain't saving into a 529 plan. They tax sheltering. We up here happy for people retired 25 years. They got grandbabies running around here. They need to do work and put into a 529 plan every year. Stephen A. Smith defends Jerry Jones over a 1957 Arkansas desegregation protest photo. Somebody says Stephen A. is not ADOS, and he isn't, and I'll talk about that in a second. While I do say that his family was here in like Jim Crow times, they came here on their own. They chose to come here for some opportunity. They didn't come here as slaves to America. What that shows up in is his work ethic beliefs, and it isn't in alignment with what ADOS have went through. It isn't his right to speak about what ADOS are experiencing. And I just think that this is the problem with not having ADOS. It's an absolute failure. It's probably one of the greatest, it's definitely one of the greatest social failures in American history. It may be one of the greatest social failures in modern history for your parents and your grandparents to have not anchored ADOS and allowed this immigration to have happened this way. It's just my, because now it's so knotted up. He has the best job. Barack Obama, these are the people speaking for your family and for your lineage. It doesn't make no sense. But like now you got to unwind it because he really feels like, understand that they had wars in the Virgin Islands. I would never speak on those wars because I have nothing to do with the lineal background. The Dutch, I believe, and the like. I have nothing. So by what right does he get to speak about ours? Nobody did that work. I respect his lineage. He does not respect ours. He sees no differentiation, and that becomes as a result of your retired grandparents that's sitting over there with no 529 plan that did no ADOS, and now you just gonna live out here and you think you're gonna make it up with labor. You gonna make $500,000 next year? Come on, let's talk about it. I don't think everybody gets it yet, how real this is. Stephen A. Smith defends Jerry Jones over 1957 Arkansas desegregation protest photo. All right. So he felt he was going to defend. Understand that he has a bias already. You're on a channel that covers the NFL. You should have just stepped away. That is some awful journalism. It is absolutely awful. Thank you, Dwight. Thank you. And then you can put a question in there if you want one, and I'll try to answer it if you do one. But you don't have to. But nonetheless, what I'm coming back to is once you work for ESPN and your interests are tied together, you're so biased that you should have never said anything, bro. Then you move over to another part of it, which is you're not ADOS. You're not ADOS. Now his I guess pushback would be his family was here for 10 years during Jim Crow. They chose to come here. And also, they chose to come here. And I think for a lot of people, that differentiation is where it all falls apart, because what he wants to say is that he has the U.S. Virgin Islands and we have nothing backwards by saying we're all the same here. But we don't speak on that place because we don't come from there. Stephen A. Smith has defended Jerry Jones after a photo from 1957 showed him among a group of white young men blocking the path. I'm pretty pissed off, Smith said on a recent First Take segment discussing the newly surfaced photo of the Dallas Cowboys owner when he was 14. I'm pissed off, but not for reasons people think. I'm very, very fond of Jerry Jones. I bet you are. I bet you are. I'm not hiding that from anybody. Is his record perfect? No. See, this is the way you hide from what you're about to say. But I'm pissed off because he doesn't deserve what just happened. He doesn't deserve it. All right, so this man in this photo blocking these black kids with this mob doesn't deserve the rebuke that we're about to give, that we should. This is nothing about compared to what I think we should do. What do you think would happen if a photo of anybody showed them near Nazis and the Holocaust was happening? That's it for them socially. That's it. By what right does Stephen A. get to dismiss the level of concern that ADOS people have when it isn't? He's not ADOS, American descendant of slavery. By what right does Stephen A. Smith get to dismiss our concerns as he worked for ESPN, helping Jerry Jones make money? The photograph was taken 65 years ago on September 9, 1957 at North Little Rock High School in Arkansas. You're going to bring up a photo of Jerry Jones standing at this protest. No question what was happening. Okay. It's not a protest. They actually are blockading the school so that people can't go in school. It's not a nonviolent protest. You don't know what's going on. You're limited. You're a very limited man in terms of education outside of sports. You should speak there and just be quiet, because that's not what was going on. You're going to bring up a photo of Jerry Jones standing at this protest. No, they was blockading the school. No question what was happening. It's not something that anybody as a black person should be appreciative about. He continued, appreciative about. What? He uses a lot of words and they don't go where you. This is not where you put appreciative. We had 6 students at that particular North Little Rock High School that was trying to desegregate the school. Nobody should be okay with that. We understand. We get all of that. And then he went on to basically chastise blacks for, basically chastise us for having critical views on Jerry Jones, which we absolutely have a right to view. For those people that want to know, where is Stephen A. Smith's parents from? St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. Smith's parents were originally from St. Thomas, U.S. Virgin Islands. His father managed a hardware store. Smith's maternal grandmother was white. The rest of his grandparents black. He graduated in 1986 from Thomas Edison High School in Queens. He was born in America, though. He's like the early phase of black immigration. So we got a whole chat, 310-388-3499, and I'm connecting this because I want to have this discussion in a productive way and talk about some of the things that we're seeing. Again, support the channel at tonetalks.net, or please use the super chat. Thank you so much to Hulk Smash. Stephen A., he really should have never spoken on this topic. It's that simple. So now we move over to Biden, and in 1977, Biden said, so we had Jerry Jones first, who's 80, still working. Your parents been retired 22 years, ain't got nothing in the 529 plan. Got your 2 babies as grandbabies. Got 3 more from your sister, and then your brother got 1. and we don't have no 529 plans. We don't have no plan. We don't have no savings. And these people still working, and we're competing against their capital because the tools that are in place allow them to transition capital across generations, literally tax-free. And we got to do it all with labor, while that retired person all of a sudden realize they don't have enough, and then asking you to be another child for them. You to be them to be your child. 1977, Biden said integrating Black students would turn schools into a jungle, a racial jungle. I don't want my children to grow up in a jungle, a racial jungle. Now, there was clarification given. Biden said that without orderly integration, his children would grow up in a racial jungle. Now, let's go back. We know about his child, which is Hunter. Hunter ended up on drugs and different things, and so he was trying to insinuate that we was going to affect Hunter. Let's be specific. We was going to affect Hunter, and it was going to be a jungle for Hunter. What about Hunter's impact on Antonio? Can we talk? Can we look at it? But they gave context on PolitiFact and said it was a half-truth, but it's not a half-truth. It's a whole truth. Biden said that without orderly integration, his children would grow up in a racial jungle. In 1977, Joe Biden warned that without orderly integration, his children would grow up in a racial jungle with tensions built so high that it's to the point that it's going to explode at some point. He was against court-ordered busing to desegregate public schools. Biden never opposed voluntary busing, according to the Times, but in their investigation into Biden's history with busing, Herndon and Stolberg described how the former vice president opposition to court-ordered busing was far more sweeping than he has led voters to believe. Now, they also say that Biden argued that house integration was a better way to desegregate public schools, but that's kind of a trick because it's slow to do housing integration, but you can do busing integration like in 6 months or next year, or even probably next month back then. You're trying to like slow the whole process down. That's what you're really trying to do. You're not trying to do integration. So you really were just opposed to integration, and this racial jungle comment came out of your mouth. And essentially now the privilege that came from that has pushed him to being the president of America. Joe Biden is the president of America, to the point where now his granddaughter, which will be many of our ages, gets to get married at the White House. Naomi Biden, president's granddaughter, is married at the White House. Ain't that nice? Now, I might have it wrong, but I believe this is Hunter's daughter. So we come back to now the third generation of privilege that comes off of this. The third generation of inheritance that came out of, let's talk about it, Joe Biden that created the carceral state. So his career is undergirded by certain acts, and one of those is putting massive numbers of Black men, your family, in prison after slavery, after Jim Crow. He's going to create a third level of mass oppression called Jim Crow. The untold story, Joe Biden pushed Ronald Reagan to ramp up incarceration, not the other way around. This is The Intercept. Biden has argued that the focus on his 1994 crime bill as a driver of mass incarceration is misplaced. He's right. It was his earlier push that was responsible. Biden is correct that the surge began in the 70s and accelerated in the 80s. But a closer look at his role reveals that it was Biden who was among the principal and earliest movers of the policy agenda that would become the war on drugs and mass incarceration. And he did so in the face of initial reluctance from none other than President Ronald Reagan. Indeed, Reagan even vetoed a signature piece of Biden legislation, which he drafted with arch segregationist Senator Strom Thurmond of South Carolina to create a federal drugs law. Can we talk about it? And this is what you get from that. We're on the third generation of the privilege that came from that. He built his career on top of it, on top of calling integration a racial jungle, on top of mass incarceration. So now we have his son, we have his granddaughter, we have all of this winning. And your parents, your grandparents are still at home, retired for 30 years. Telling you they ain't gonna save nothing for you. Why should they? They did it on their own with no context that they did it on their own during a time when America allowed them to through policy. Isolationism, still in effect. Unions still strong. Low-wage workers protected. Immigration not at the state it is today. Can we talk? 310-388-3499. I know this is a heavy topic. It isn't just a call in where you just drop in and some of y'all about to get your feelings hurt. A lot of us are going to get our feelings hurt. I put up a series of tweets about wealth. I really wanted to have a wealth show, but I wanted to give context because so often we talk about rich white folk, but we don't talk about who? Joe Biden. Let's go back. I hate to have to go back and forth, but Joe Biden is 80. Jerry Jones is 80. They still working. They transitioning wealth. They are transitioning wealth to their children who now have children in some cases that are our age. 3 generations of privilege. You got Hunter Biden, basically working under Biden. All this privilege of these multi-million-dollar deals is because of Biden's position in politics. President, vice president, and then you got Stephen Jones. He's the CEO of the Cowboys. He done inherited the Cowboys, and then Jerry Jones still alive, running around. 80 years old. Interviews, all that. This is happening in every industry. All the coaches. You look at the coach of the Niners, and his daddy coached with him. You look at the coach of the Denver Broncos. His daddy was the coach of the USC. You look at everything, and it's intergenerational now. But at least your grandparents and your parents got to retire at 57. Huh. Can we talk? Can we get to it? I want to talk about it. I know it's hard. I realize something. I want to tell you my theory. It might hurt some of y'all feelings, but I'm just gonna tell you my theory. I ain't saying it's absolutely right, but I'm gonna just tell you my theory. I believe there's a secret deal that has been made between a certain segment of Black folks that went to college and their parents have been together 40 years but don't have nothing saved in the 529, and them. It's not all of us, because I don't even have parents at this point. My mama's deceased. So I never knew my grandfather. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because I see it very clearly, and you guys are so close to it. So the deal is to not talk to them about that 529 plan. You guys can have a great Thanksgiving and a great Christmas as long as you don't bring this politics to the house and talk about that 529. You can let them play with all 6 of their grandchildren as long as you don't compare them to Jerry Jones, to Joe Biden, to all that cost that you're bearing. Y'all good. As long as you give them the pleasures and not the costs. It is that secret deal that is keeping Black folks from doing politics in some ways. Because that group is the group that went to college. And I need you to be the most vocal, but you ain't even vocal at home. How you going to be vocal outside if you quiet at home? Can we talk? Can I tell you again what the deal is? Just to be clear, there is a silent deal between Black folks who have parents that have been together, 2 parents, 40 years, to not talk about the shortcomings. Where is the money for us to be here? So we can emulate you. We just gonna act like it's all okay that the 529s are empty. So everybody at Disney World, that ain't nothing in the 529. They give you ability to put $16,000 in the 529 college savings plan every year. How much did your grandparents put in for you? How much did they put in for your child? Your parents put in for their child, your child. How do you expect to transition a fully functional, highly elite American that already carries the burden of being from ADOS and from your lineal line and mine as well? I just don't have that child. How do you expect to transition them, boo-boo? How are you going to allow them to be part of America? Or did you just magically think it was just going to magically happen when they turn 18? Then when they fall apart, you want to act like it's on them. They depressed. Let me give you a better measurement stick for y'all out there. We got to start getting honest. If you got a 20-year-old, a 22-year-old, particularly if they went to college and they finished, and they're driving Uber tonight, you have failed them. Now, I'm not saying that what you got to do with that. That's for each person to figure shit out. But that ain't no math. And it comes directly out of not having the conversations that needed to be had, allowing people to stay retired that needed to go work to save into a 529 plan because of how the taxation works, for people that needed to be out there pushing back. Now, let me say this. Even if you didn't want to do the 529 plan, there should have been a massive push by all black folks, all the ADOS folks, that it shouldn't exist no way because we can't save into it. You got to block it or you got to contribute. Let me say it again. So you got to either contribute to the 529 plan or you got to block that it shouldn't exist. You can't allow it to exist and just the white folks can put into it and then just look around like why all the black kids struggling with student loans. Can we talk about it? Can we see it? I'm just saying. Yeah, look, somebody just said 16,000 every year. That's just like that's the small money. That's you're supposed to put more than that aside. These dreams we have cost. Think of it like a dinner menu. There's a cost next to the menu. We just look at the item. Oh, college education, marriage. We want our kid to have all these things have a price on the other side. How you gonna pay for it? These people already know how they gonna pay for theirs. All these people right here, are they gonna pay for it with your oppression? They're gonna pay for it with their 80-year-old grandparents. How are you gonna pay for it if he's standing outside blocking you and he putting you in? Look, if he's standing outside and blocking you from going to school, having access when it mattered back in the 60s and all that, and then he starts standing here and blocking you and saying you're gonna go to prison, and then you're gonna vote for him, and then his granddaughter at the White House getting married. What are we doing? Can I get to it? Can I connect it all? Come on. Come on. Come on. You don't get the privilege, TC, of not knowing. When the last time that your parents said to you, hey, I understand you got that credit card debt. You didn't know. No, this world holds you accountable for your pleasures, for your games, for your there is no you didn't know. We all got to know now. You want to have 2 grandbabies on one leg, 2 on the other, 1 on your neck. That's about $700,000. Nobody told you? Oh, so the secret deal is we don't tell him. Let him be retired, live his life out, and pass on. And then we gonna all just like haggle afterwards? That ain't math. Our parents don't get how hard it is. This is an article from BuzzFeed, generally, not about ADOS. It said only 40% of millennials have a house. What percentage do you think of black millennials? Our parents don't get how hard it is. Millennial homeowners are revealing how they did it. Understand the ADOS, I said to you, this is my part. Understand the whole math is being boomer hooked. I've told you before the concept of boomer hook. You have black folks that are about millennial age that are hooked to a boomer and making it look like there's black progress when actually it's just your hooking to a boomer, and they pretty much set the whole nation up where you got to get large transfer from your boomer because they set up like let's be real, as illegal as it is, you can get $30,000 from your grandma in the account and hope maybe the bank might catch it, or maybe the bank might not. And white people doing that all day, every day. If not that, then grandma just pay your car note just straight. Every month she paid a $700. Pay your cell phone bill, $150. Keep you 13 years old. And that's what Hunter Biden is. That's what, man, these people are like big 13-year-olds. To me, I know everybody has their own perspective. In context of the way that we live life, they're big 13-year-olds, and these people are still 40, and we're competing against them. With 40 years of oppression that they pulling from. I don't know if y'all see it yet, because really you under the Hunter Biden. You with them. She ain't got to do nothing but just hold her hand straight to the side. Get married at the White House. Thank you so much, Ricky M. I'm connecting the dots because we having an abstract conversation about Jerry Jones, and we ain't talking about the real, which is how does it impact you? So they did the BuzzFeed article, and then I pulled a couple of the sections. You go on Twitter, but here goes one of them. Pure luck. How they bought their house. I had the grades for my university to waive tuition fees. I still had some small loans, but they were more manageable. Then I married a dude who had bought a house. He was in the military, saved up his pay for 4 years and rarely splurged. As a vet, his tuition was fully paid, so no student loans. Hold on. So they not telling us about when they move home and live at home and who paid the car note and all that stuff. But where it all kind of come out is here. The pandemic boom, when we inherit a home. During the pandemic boom, when we inherit a home. We sold, I did that on purpose. So they sold their house to live in an inherited house, likely tax-free. You are competing against calcified white wealth over multi-generations with labor taxed at 40%. And you think this is all right. And we going to giggle and we going to have a good time. See what you got to understand is we've talked about this chart. I'm not going to go into it over and over again, but we went through it. This is Ray Diallo did the original version. The original version looks much more like this here. I colored it so that we could actually see. Thank you so much, King Solomon. We getting into it today. I want to give context because everybody just talking about Jerry Jones. No, he got all the money. Finish. We tapped out. What y'all gonna do? So when you look at wealth, what was happening was America had made a decision that it was going to be for the working people, and the unions rose and civil rights came with all kind of privileges and advantages we had never seen before, along with several other factors. This red line, it represents the share of wealth held by the bottom 90% of America. The bottom 90%. This green line represents the share of wealth held by the top 0.1. So pretty much the top 0.1 of families, very small number, had the same amount of wealth as all the bottom 90 during the Depression. They now have more wealth than us, because this is like 2016. They now have more wealth than the so basically we're in the kind of inequality you've never seen, and you're still allowing a person that came about during this period to talk to you like they make any sense. They needed to. This was the time to think about it like this: like there's a summer where squirrels gather walnuts, and then there's a winter where you eat what you gather. We're in the winter. Our whole life will likely be in the winter. That means that the people that were here either failed you or succeeded you. At least you better speak up for yourself and find out what they did while they're here living. So this moment is where you had the most potential. This is basically 1960, 70, 80. Reagan comes into office and it starts to swing, but it went well into like the 90s. And so the current Black psyche is based on a time of wealth sharing back here. But we live here, which is more like the Depression. And I guess many of y'all won't know that until you actually experience it and like family really come at you. Steal your spoons and your forks or whatever it looked like. Go through your wallet, fraud, use your name. That's, I guess, when you find out what it is and what it isn't. So there's a third chart, and I don't know if I have it here. Here it is. That actually adds the 9.9, because a lot of games are played by people like Elizabeth Warren, Senator Elizabeth Warren, to talk about just the 0.1. Well, this is the same chart adding in. So this chart is the 0.1 and the 90. This is the 90%, bottom 90%, and this is the top 0.1. Now, let me give one more bit of context. The middle family in America, and I'll show you in a second, is worth about like $120,000, $130,000. Only like 90% of Black folks are below that. Almost all the working age Blacks are below that, bar a few, if you hook to a boomer. But if you look over at the reality of white folks, half their families are above that. So we're almost entirely in the section of America that has no wealth, and we're talking about the most elite goals talking about $1 million homes and colleges that are $70,000, got nothing in a 529 plan, celebrating somebody else's retirement with no potential for us to ever retire, while they leave us with a father that might have been in prison because of Biden that has no Social Security even coming because he's been in prison so long. Or they leave us with a consumption-driven mother that's still buying purses. We had this call in where his wife's mother didn't want to contribute to the house while she lived in the house, but wanted to buy purses. Can we talk? So we look at this chart, and when you add in the top, and these are almost all white, this gold line, which is the 9.9, and this brown line, which is the 0.1, that's all white folks. How many people are we talking about, Tony? So if we're talking about roughly probably 15 million white families. There's only 20 million black that are in this top 10% group. They have all the wealth. That's whose people are going to college and stuff and going to achieve great things. They have their 529 plan money before the kid is born. They don't talk about some prospective amount that's going to happen and the kid is 16 and has nothing in there. Can we talk? We live in this black line, mostly towards the bottom half, even after going to college, driving Uber, still talking about dreams without any attachment to reality, just floating balloons waiting to be popped. The median annual pay during the Great Depression. I need you guys, let me go back. So when it crossed, it was back in the Depression. We've crossed again, and actually the top 0.1 more wealth than the bottom, and they just have everything. But to give you context of what that looked like, the median annual pay during the Great Depression was 22% of the cost of an average home. Today it's 14%. That means the pay relative to home costs made it easier to buy a home during the Great Depression than right now. This is absurd. You have to get transfers to live. Y'all got to figure it out. Don't get mad at me. I'm just telling you what nobody has told you. You cannot live in America without some levels of transfers. And I'm talking about $10,000, $20,000 of transfers. Now, if that's not there, though, you got to hold accountable the person that don't have it. You got to figure out how that looks. I'm not talking about no violence or nothing. I'm talking about conversationally, like when your rent is due and it ain't paid, that's the way you should look at it. I'm just giving you the basics. Everybody seems to understand when they send their kid off to UCLA, except for us. The top 1% of Americans have taken 50 trillion from the bottom 90%, and that made the U.S. less secure. This is an article from Time. This is not some back of the napkin approximation. According to groundbreaking new working paper by Carter C. Price and Catherine Edwards of Rand Corporation, had the more equitable income distributions of the 3 decades following World War II. We just showed you that when the line is going up for the bottom 90, merely held steady, the aggregate annual income of Americans earning below the 90th percentile would have been $2.5 trillion higher in 2018 alone. That is an amount equal to nearly 12% of GDP, enough to more than double median incomes, enough to pay every single working American in the bottom 9 deciles an additional $1,144 a month, every single year. So your grandparents, your parents have talked to you like they're Jerry Jones, like they're Joe Biden, and they're going to give you the gap. Or like they kept the policies in place and that happened. And you make all that extra money just like them. You don't live just like them. You live in the winter. And you should look at them like that. I'm in the winter. Your time was the summer. What's in the 529 plan? Those conversations should have happened when the baby is 3, when the baby is 8, when the baby is 15, to keep track of it. There is a consequence. There is a cost. Let me skip down because I want to show you something. I was going to do this later, but this is like there's a menu. Child 1, child 2. It's not exact, but there's a menu. That menu is here. Like there's an article I put up on Twitter. You can go read the whole article where a financial advisor breaks it down. How much you should have on the low end and the high end. If your kid is going to become like functional in society, highly functional. Can we go through the numbers or is it going to make people feelings hurt? Because I want to talk about this article that came out with the New York Times about Black folks living alone, but I don't want Black people that have irresponsibly had families they aren't affording to act like they're better off. We're just all in bad lifeboats. But you might not know it because you don't understand what the menu was. Can we talk? For that family you picked up. So I'm going to give you the menu just for the 529. What I would argue is that even on the low end, and that's the lowest end is at 18, you end up at $37,000. There still should be another 70,000 each kid for them to transition into life. That's America. If you want a high functioning kid, not driving Uber, not out here trying to do crypto because they ain't never had no money in their pocket. That's the lowest end though. So at one, you're supposed to have $1,100, but on the high end, you're supposed to have $7,800. At 18, you're supposed to have 37,328. They got it down to the dollar, $328. On the high end, you're supposed to have $245,000 in that 529 plan. Now, what I would say to you is we're going to go through coming back to connecting Jerry Jones, Joe Biden, and the privilege of having two 80-year-olds working for you right now that are at the top of America is that a lot of white folks have this before the baby is born. Top 25, top 30% of white folks. Because there is a cost, there is a menu. There's been this silent deal amongst black folks to not talk about the menu. We talk about the hairstyling and show the videos of them lifting weights or doing karate or whatever. What about the menu though? Can we get into it? And baby bonds don't solve that. Because all they're going to do is raise the price of tuition. You need something that your kid have that other people's kids don't. You need something that everybody's kids have. Who owns more wealth? Top 0.1 or bottom 80? And understand, America is among the wealthiest countries in the history of the world. So it's different here. America's in red, the top 0.1. Our families are all in the bottom part. Who owns more wealth? Can we get to it? Can we have this discussion? I know it's ain't nobody calling, but it's okay. This will be just a learning show. It's a lot of content here. I know it's a lot of angry people looking at their kids wondering, what have I done? Now, I'm not here to frustrate you. I'm here just to tell you that there is a menu. Now, you can say that it's going to all be scholarships or something else, but what about that 529 plan? And what about the conversation that needs to be had about why there's nothing there? Everybody can tell you they love you. The question is, how does that love transition me into stability in America? What politics did you do? What economics did you say? How did you think about me and how I was going to transition? Did you protect me from the onslaught of mass immigration and how it might impact me in terms of labor, in terms of everything else? Did you protect me from lineage and the reality of, if you don't have ADOS, what else you got? You just like here, free floating. You flat black. Or did you just retire early and that's it? You out. You zoned out. Wealth distribution in the United States in the second quarter of 2022. Hold on one second. We got a plane coming by. We got a plane. Can I talk about it? I know everybody be mad and frustrated. I'm just giving you the numbers because they got the charts. A lot of people don't look at the charts because the charts hurt your feelings. Yeah, Kevin, we're going to pull the chart. We're going to pull the whole curtain back. Again, support the channel, tonetalks.net, or subscribe. Thank you so much. Wealth distribution in the United States in the second quarter of 2022. So we have top 1%, the full top 1% has 31% of the wealth. That's not a lot of families that have a lot of the wealth. Jesus. The 90 to the 99th percentile has 37%. So the top 10% of America has around 60, almost 70% of the wealth. Our families are entirely in the bottom 50%. So we entirely in the bottom 50%, nearly. So the reason you can use I can give you a metric to help you understand where you are. And many of you already know because you're negative because of student loans and all kind of chicanery they got in the system. But the average net worth of an all-American family was $746,000. According to the Federal Reserve's 2019 survey of consumer finances, while the median, which is the middle family, was $121,000. So the middle family in America was worth $121,000. That means that everybody below that is in the bottom half. That bottom half only has 3% of wealth. So if you worth less than that, and then you telling your kids they're going to compete against people in the top 1 or at least the top 10, I don't understand what we're doing. At what point does somebody hold their bag and understand what you set up here? Is it we gonna make it about the kid when they don't compete, or they get there and they're depressed and they can't buy the things that they need to actually survive? Or are we gonna deal with it right now that I picked up too much life? Can we talk about it? I see it, Miss Callie. As a single mother, I had 0 and a 529 for my 2 kids. So then we got to do some politics. We got to get part of this ADOS Foundation, and we got to be in there day and night. We got to be in there day and night pushing. So the minimum net worth of the top 1% is roughly $11.1 million. A person would need to earn an average of $800,000 a year in order to join the top 1%. The widening gaps in wealth and income stem from a variety of factors. But what factor does it stem from the most? Racism and privilege and advantage that came out of it. It stemmed from being 80 years old or having 80-year-old working for you. To have imagine what it's like to have somebody 80 years old literally working for you, because all the stuff they earn is going to go into an account. It's going to come to you like in the next 4 years or 5 years. If not, they just transfer it to you earlier than that. And they make it like elite wealth, and they have all of the privileges and relationships to tell you where to put it early. Like, how y'all gonna compete against that? Especially when they locking you out and pushing you out of the math in America is to have an old bad white person that made millions off of doing bad things to people care a lot about you as their child or grandchild, and then you smile a lot and play progressive, spending the ill-gotten gains. And if you can do it with one of those BLM shirts, all the better. Millennials will inherit 68 trillion by 2030. Can we talk? This is the context that Stephen A. Smith, because he don't have that much education, he don't really know. It's like, he don't really know like that. He's like a sports guy. He don't understand this context of I majored in political science at UCLA. I don't know what this, when he comes to sports and double dribble and timeouts and all that, go to him. When it comes to this, come to Tone Talks. So we come back to it and we start to see the context. Richest 1% gained 6.5 trillion in wealth last year, which is 2021. The stock portfolios of the top 1%, all white families nearly. All white families, if not some foreign families, but not ADOS, outside of a few celebrities, and they don't really even break in that much, are now worth 23 trillion, and they own a record 53.9% of individually held shares. I want to talk. I mean, I know this is heavy. I know it's a heavy show. Woo! Ain't gonna be no calls tonight, I guess, because it's too heavy. The top 1% of Americans have about 16 times more wealth than the bottom 50%, which is pretty much where all of working age Black folks exist. Because you need $121,000 in worth to be out of that 50%. You got to be tied to somebody old that care about you a lot, or you locked out. Period. The U.S., and preferably if they could be white and they did some bad things that gave them that wealth, and that's the trick of a lot of biracials that's going on right now, my view at least, is that the way America adjusted and moved, they play the line. So they write about ADOS life, and in many cases, entirely live their lives like a Jordan Peele inside of the cocoon of whiteness, and will inherit the privileges of not only their white parent, but often their white grandparent, and sometimes the white parents are professional, and then they placate to the narrative that we all made it by talking about diversity when somebody asked them, instead of opting out and saying, I don't know nothing, I grew up with white people, so just treat me like a white person in terms of this discussion about the cost of ADOS Blackness in America, because I didn't live that and I won't live that. Can we talk about it? Caller, what's your name? Where are you calling from?
What's up, Brother Tom, man? It's Twine again. I'm calling from Odessa, Texas.
What up, Twan? Give me your take on this.
Yeah, bro, like I said, man, I'm hearing you, man. I've been hearing you, but what's the solution, man? You know, they bringing in these illegals, they flood us with illegals.
Oh, you here
You know,
now?
they murdered us.
You at the dance? You at the dance now?
Right?
So you at the dance? We already did the solution thing. Y'all chose to do rallies and all kind of nonsense. We at the dance now. The solution now is you just got to buckle up and be ready because it's coming. So all the questions, y'all like, and no disrespect to you, you might as well not ask me about no solution no more. Because what needed to happen, like take for instance the California reparations thing, they did it all wrong. You had to be ready to say we walking away if we not talking about cash. You had to be ready to say we need it within this amount of time, and we're moving like that. You had to actually say it's not about state level cash. We don't care about what California gives us. We want it to be pressured on the federal government, who has trillions of dollars in their reservoirs. But nobody did that. So everybody want to play all sides. But that start with just you had to say to your grandparents, "Where's my 529 for these kids?" So nobody want to. That's the solution. Look dead in the eye of your grandmama or your granddaddy and ask them, what's in this 529? I know we want to play and how to run it back and forth and all that. All that's good. And I love to give that to you. What's in the 529? Because I can't survive without it. That's the solution. So if you ain't ready to do that, then buckle up. I'm gonna let you go, caller. Look, this I don't mean no disrespect to nobody, but you can't push your chaos onto my life or my show. So, like, when I say that, and I'm not saying he meant to do that, what's happening now is that you want me to tell you how to put money in the 529 plan you're supposed to put in for the last 18 years? Kid 18 ain't nothing in there. So, what's the solution? Money's supposed to be in the 529. That's the solution. We in here now. We at the dance. Buckle up. So, the U.S. wealthiest 1% are pulling further away from the bottom 90, which is pretty much all of black folks. Between 2015 and 2020, the wealth of the top 1% and that of the bottom 90 in the U.S. were in near parity. Sometimes one metric stuck its head above the other, or vice versa. Now, though the trends have reversed, measured by share of total net worth, the richest 1% of Americans have been pulling further and further away from the bottom 90% in 2021. By this metric, the U.S. has not witnessed today's levels of inequality in at least the 3 decades that the Federal Reserve has been compiling data on wealth percentiles. And this is generally, this is not just about ADOS. So what do you think it is inside of ADOS? Are you preparing yourself mentally, which is the solution, for the consequence of that? When it rained hard outside to the point where it's flooding, you can't ask me to give you no sunlight. You got to be ready for sandbags. And we are at that moment. And it's not just for people who have children and family. It's for people who are living alone. As Gen X and Boomers age, they confront living alone. More older Americans are living by themselves than ever before. That shift presents issues on housing, healthcare, and personal finance. In 1960, just 13% of American households had a single occupant, but that figure has risen steadily, and it's risen steadily for no group more than ADOS people. Talk about it in a second. And today it is approaching 30% for households headed by someone 50 or older. That figure is 36%. Nearly 26 million Americans 50 or older now live alone, up from 15 million in 2000. Older people have always been more likely than others to live by themselves. And now that age group, boomers and Gen Xers, make up the bigger share of the population than at any time in the nation's history. So this is what's going on. Not only is this grandparent not have a 529 plan, but now you got to treat them like a child while you don't have no 529 plan, and tell your kid they're going to be elite in America where your contemporaries' grandparents are still working as the president of America, as the owner of the Cowboys, sitting on top of the racism that allowed them to propel themselves to that position, as the president of America, as the owner of the Cowboys, which is worth billions. I need you to see what I'm saying. I mean, how it come out might not always be all that palatable, but it come out. ADOS Black Americans, this is a tweet I put out, are living a specific cost. And people won't understand the economic implications of what my Tone Talks project has explained until it's decades too late. So they did a sub chart that showed Black Americans are most likely to live alone. But they're really talking about ADOS people. I'll talk about that in a second. Because of the marriage rates amongst the West Africans, larger amounts of wealth, larger amounts of stability. Didn't come from ADOS backgrounds, don't bear the cost of coming from American slavery. They out here just living the best of lives, talking about we all flat black. Then you got Caribbeans live multi-generationally much more in line with Latinos. So Black, under this chart, was 48% of Blacks 65 or older are living alone, 39%, 50 to 64 are living alone, 25%, 35 to 49 are living alone, 31% of 21 to 34 are living alone. Look at the other numbers. Look at the Hispanic, 35 to 49. These are like 12% are living alone versus 25%. We just don't have wealth. This is a measure of instability. We're unstable like no one else. I want to talk about it. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
This is North. I didn't realize I was going to get in so quick.
What up, North? Yeah, they quiet tonight. The birds ain't chirping tonight because this ain't about Jay-Z. Hove! This ain't about Diddy. This is about looking at the reality, not just of Jerry Jones, so we can berate Jerry Jones about racism, but digging into the consequence of you not having a Jerry Jones. Talk about it. Are you being the bearer of the consequence of Jerry Jones being allowed to exist, make money despite having built his shit on top of blocking a black set of black school children? Let me read something to you, North. It's likely the ADOS Black solo living rates are much higher. And that goes back to what I was talking about with the Black number, because I added in skewed 10 points or more by flat blackness. So when I say skewed 10 points, you can easily see Black ADOS numbers where everything is 10 points higher, meaning 35 to 49, 35% live alone, and 50 to 64, 49% live alone, because it's kind of skewed by this. Marriage rates are much higher among Black African immigrants, 59% versus 29%, I believe, for ADOS or Black Americans, and they are less likely to live in multi-generational households, unlike Black Caribbeans and Latin immigrants. So, North, give me your take on it real quick before I move to the next conversation.
Yeah, sure. I really, I just want to go in order. And I just want to start by saying this. Again, thank you for talking about this. The next thing is I specifically wanted to call this just to be selfish, period, because it's really pertaining to that caller that just left off of your line about what maybe 5 minutes ago. And I want to say this: if I hear one more time about somebody's solutions when you're literally sitting you're literally sitting in the reaction, in the causations of everything that's going on, because everybody is mature, but they're not adulting. You a whole adult, but you can't sit and sit down and actually take 5 minutes attention to understand what's literally going to happen to you, what's going to happen to your children, and what's happening to you in this moment. And when I say that I'm going to be selfish, because I don't know what life everyone is living, but I'm gonna just get right to it. Because of the stuff that's going on right now and has been going on for the longest time, I have had a shitty life. All the stuff that you're talking about, you are absolutely right to be talking about it. This is why I'm never gonna come out and act as if you all don't know what you're saying. That goes for you and Yvette. That goes for the rest of the people in AR who go on Twitter or in their respective states talking to politicians and actually pushing a narrative that should be pushed, that is a black agenda that is taking care of AR. So when you get people that come on to Yvette's show and come on to your show, and you have nothing better to do, when this man is sitting up here telling you, do you not want to, like you are, like they say in the Bible, and I'm an atheist. I know what the Bible says. In the Bible, it tells you you are 10 breaths away from death. That's what you're sitting at. You're sitting at death. And I'm telling you, as somebody who has been raped on the street, somebody who I've almost lost my life several times as a disabled
Yeah, North, it's real interesting because I don't know if people really know. Like Michi kind of talked to us. Shout out to her. That reparations bill from California came out at my show and event show. The young girl, not young, she's actually a full-grown woman. No disrespect. Maureen actually developed that. What's going on now? I don't know what they're talking about. So it needed to be a pressure on the federal government. That's not what they're doing. I don't know what they're doing, but that's not what they're doing. And so, in effect, it's not. That is like the movement towards a solution. But a lot of y'all need money tomorrow, and like the storm is here. And
you need money yesterday.
Yeah, and so when I come to that, I y'all don't have a whole granddaddy in there with like 30,000 in an account, and like you don't have food in your refrigerator, and he retired. Y'all not having the conversations that you need to put that back on his bag. How did we get here? And that's the silent deal that goes on. It's kind of like that's his money. It isn't though. You're competing in an America where people are stacked on like Lego pieces. You trying to make it up by going to work for Uber tonight on a $4 drive? I'm just saying, everybody can take it how they want. North, thanks so much for calling. You dropped that fire. Woo! We almost to the end of the show. This is a little bit of a longer show. Appreciate all the calls. I don't want anybody to feel like they can't call in, but we will talk about it. And you and the Lions did. I'm gonna take one more caller. And the answer of family. I kind of broke speed. We were talking about this solo living at Gen Xers and Boomers age. They confront living alone. I didn't want people to come back and say, well, that's why you have family. You got to pay for that though. It's a menu. There's costs, and those costs are really high because you're not supposed to pay for them just with this life. And the answer of family, many of us can't afford, is not the answer either. Many of you are finding that out firsthand. Wealth is a reflection of your social anchoring in a country, and ADOS largely have none in a country our specific families built as slaves. So we don't have no wealth, and we don't have no social positioning. They just put us down at the bottom with people that just got to America. We got no social anchoring. We're supposed to be like right up here. In fact, I think we should be here, but we're not supposed to be. that means you have no social anchoring, no wealth, no nothing. And then you just talk about and infuse your kids with all these goals, dreams, and aspirations of competing with the top 10% of America for opportunities with no advantage, privileges, no politics, no nothing. And I don't know if y'all are trying to set yourself up for craze or just crazed, but I just know that there is a moment that all of that will come to your table. Lots of kids' hairstyling and sports training clips get posted. That isn't the cost. Doing the math on the lowest end, it's over $100,000 in an account for each child at 18. 38,000 of it in a 529. This is America. How much should you have in a 529 plan by age? The collegeinvestor.com. They did the chart. They showed on the low end for a 1-year-old, you should have $7,000 at the end of the year just in the 529. That's not in another account for them to buy a house, for them to transition into life, for them to get married. Talk about it. By 18, it should be 37 for each kid. 250,000 on the high end. The low end though is 37. We don't got the low end. We don't got anything. Let me take one more caller. Caller, what's your name? Where you calling from?
Oh, this is Cynthia, and I'm calling from Indianapolis.
Hey, Cynthia, I got that 529. I got that 529 chart on the. Had you seen anything like this before, of where an investor, banker, or a financial advisor, I should say, gives you some kind of guidance of what?
That's a good question. I have seen something like this before. My parents started the 529 fee for my kids, but I was never able to contribute to it myself. All my money went to living and taking care of us and all of that. And I was married. I'm widowed now, but we had the low end, but it was for one child. It was for three. So what you're saying is, so I think the reason there's so much silence is because this is so sobering. It's just so. And I knew you were going to break it down how Jerry Jones was connected to all of this, but the way you have just masterfully connected it is just it's so eye-opening.
So basically, and let me say something. I appreciate that. What this is actually saying is that this is a tax haven. It's not a savings plan. What you actually are seeing is that grandparents are supposed to put money in here because we don't make enough money, and you would have to make like hundreds of thousands of dollars to have the excess. So this is a tax haven saving plan for grandparents. Now, if ADOS, what I'm saying is if your ADOS grandparent wasn't going to have enough to put a good amount in here, they should have blocked this. But everybody just like kind of ducked their head in the sand. So now this is here. And this is a mechanism and a tool that we should have never allowed to happen to the extent that we can picket signs and everything else. So let me say one last thing. I come back. Let me say one last thing. You can only do two things though to do it right. You can either try to block it or you can contribute. You cannot just be retired and sit on the couch and watch judge shows. Not to be responsible.
I was going to say to that is that, okay, so without strong political education, you didn't have enough sense to block it at the time. You're like, oh, okay, that makes sense, so I'll contribute, not knowing that you don't even have enough money to contribute.
Well, I'm saying in the sense of not your actual, like, achievement of the blocking. I'm talking about a social discussion where you object to the blocking at the church level, at the community level.
Yeah.
I'm talking about where we say this thing exists, it's going to cause our kids a devastating effect in the future, and we have to block it. No, they didn't even like it don't exist like college. Like I don't know. I like kids are free. Real talk. That's what we dealing with. And what I'm telling you right now is you have to understand that 80-year-old people that are the same age as your grandparents or your parents in some of y'all cases are still working in elite jobs in America and giving that money to their kids.
Yeah.
So how do you expect this all to work out? And each of y'all have to answer that. But I will say you can't talk about reparations outside of your house if you ain't having the necessary conversation inside your house. You can, but you just sound crazy.
We're struggling to get our parents together internally. We're struggling to get our whole family to get on the same page. Struggling.
Hey, some of us aren't struggling at all because we're not really doing it. We just giving out the pleasures. Let me give you an example. You buy a car. You buy a car. You don't like how shiny it is, so you go get some wax and you wax it out front. Now, in one hand, you could call waxing it work, but the real work is when you pay that car note. The waxing part was your pleasure. We all here acting like it's good that your parents watch your kids, but that's the pleasure still. I'm sorry. The question is about this 529 plan. And I'm not saying that that at the end of the day you tear your relationships apart over this, but they need to be part of the conversation, just like your rent is due, this bill is due, and whether they're here or not, it's still gonna be due. And you can't push it to the baby when it's daytime, when they go to college. Well, you got to do it on your own, like me. And a lot of people are up against that decision and how they communicate it. I just say start the communication. Thank you so much for calling in, man. Each of y'all got your own way of doing it, but there is a menu. And that menu has cost next to it, and somebody gonna have to pay. In reality, the 529 is a multi-generational tax shelter, not a place to save $1 at a time. It is a place to transfer assets your family already has, not a place for you to save $100 out of each monthly paycheck, with white grandparents maxing it out annually for millennials. Understand the tax benefits of the 529 plan. You'll enjoy a deduction of up to $10,000 per year, $20,000 if married and filing jointly, and you pay no state income tax. Come on. For federal tax purposes, the annual contribution limit is the federal annual gifting limit currently in effect for the year in which a contribution is made to an account, $16,000 in 2022. Can a grandparent contribute to a 529? Yes, 529 plans accept third-party contributions. So a grandparent may contribute to a grandchild's 529 plan account. This is what is happening. This connects to the overall discussion because we're competing against where that money comes from. The privileges, the advantage, the oppression. So this is not an abstract conversation. It's a real conversation. It's about a conversation that makes you ask the question, if my daddy was working class and retired at 60, how I'm gonna make it if the president of America is working at 80? He got his grandchild getting married at the White House. They both got their children. Or Jerry Jones got his child running the most expensive team in the world, and then Hunter Biden doing deals he ain't got no experience to be doing because of who his daddy is. We all got to come to the resolve for this thing in our own way. But what I will tell you is the math that we're using right now ain't it. This is Tone Talks. Please go to tonetalks.org to subscribe or donate. Share this video. We having a discussion that contextualizes politics, wealth in a way that nobody else is on the internet. Thank you.